Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for coming to this webinar today, where we're going to go through the department's Thematic Research Call 2025. We've had a good bit of interest in the webinar, so I really want to thank you for giving your time to listen to us and to get some more information on the call. So the outline for today, we're going to go through a few slides on the call itself. So this will give you an overview of the call and the key themes in the call. We'll also go through some of the main points of information for you as applicants, and then we're giving over a good chunk of time to questions and answers at the end. We're on the GoToWebinar platform, so that means that you put your questions into the question box, so not into the chat box. Type your questions into the question box, and you can type them in at any time. So as we're going through the presentation and the course of the discussion, just type your questions in there, and we'll try and get to as many of them at the end as we can. I'm joined by a good few of my own team here this morning, so I just want to welcome them and thank them all for coming. And we'll call on them for questions at the end. So I have Noel Holleran, Ross Reynolds and Fiona Malone, and they'll be covering off research, administration and financial aspects of the call. Then we have Aidan Holohan, who's going to cover off the climate and environmental questions that come up in that area. Then we have Cian O'Connor and Tony Quinn on the forestry questions. We also have Matthew Halpin on bioeconomy, ag tech and digitalisation, and Willie Ryan and Billy Carey on the agricultural questions. The webinar is recorded, and we'll make the recording available afterwards. So the 2025 thematic call comes under our thematic research strand. So most of you will know this at this stage, that we replaced the old firm Coford and stimulus model at the end of 2020, and we have this 5-strand model that replaced it, the main one being the thematic research strand. The other ones are the international outreach strand, which would be things like the Ireland-New Zealand Research Initiative. And just on that, for people that are watching, for your information, that initiative is undergoing a review at the moment, following its 3-year pilot. So we don't currently have a call planned for that, because the initiative itself is under review. And within the international outreach, that would cover off things like Horizon Europe and the partnerships and soil mission. The industry outlook strand involves research that we conduct with formal industry collaboration. Coordination and support is for supporting researchers in networks and other activities. And then the strategic study strand, that's mainly the Policy and Strategic Studies Research Call, the PSSRC. And for your information, we hope to have a Policy and Strategic Studies Research Call later this year. It'll probably be at the back end of the year before that goes out. So the 2025 call comes under the thematic strand. We run calls every second year, the last one being the 2023 call. So the call itself then, we're still utilising the 10-year strategy Food Vision 2030 as the anchor for the call, and its central vision of becoming a world leader in sustainable food systems, and that effectively means delivering food security and nutrition to all without compromising on economic, social and environmental sustainability. The call itself is seeking to support innovation, competitiveness, resilience, a forward-looking agri-food, forest and bio-based sector, and we're seeking to engage with you as researchers, research institutions, and indeed other stakeholders in the agri-food sector. So the principal objectives of the call, and it's worth just touching on these for a minute. So in no particular order, we're seeking here to encourage collaboration, multi and inter and transdisciplinary, Building research capacity and expertise, that's an important one for us as always. Most of the funding goes to pay for the stipends and salaries of young career researchers, and that's a really important aspect of what we do in our funding. It's building up that knowledge pipeline in terms of people, but also, of course, in terms of research outcomes. And there we go again, providing opportunities for early stage researchers in areas of strategic importance to the sector. We're also seeking to support knowledge transfer and exchange between researchers and others in the agricultural knowledge and innovation system, hence the continued inclusion of a requirement for a knowledge transfer plan. Supporting innovative research projects with strong potential for impact remains a key objective, hence the requirement for a research impact statement. Also developing knowledge and research to advance all aspects of the sector: agriculture, food, forest and bio-based systems. We do have a broad mandate in our research calls. We're trying to cover many different aspects of the agri-food, forest and bioeconomy sector. So, you know, some people would say that the call is quite wide, but that reflects the mandate that we have in the department. The other objective of the call is to continue to help with Irish researchers engaging and their involvement in international calls. We often hear this from you as researchers, that the funding you get through our calls really puts you in a strong position to find collaborators in other countries in international calls, and indeed to succeed in drawing down funding. And finally, looking to raise awareness and engage the public on this research. So we have a series of principles that apply to the call. These are principles you'll be all familiar with and that you will have seen before. Scientific excellence, of course, remains up there as a priority, reflected in the marking system. But other aspects here include the research having a strategic outlook, making sure we avoid conflicts of interest, that the research is inclusive, fair, that we're cognizant of equality and diversity perspectives, that the research has integrity, that we're complying with open science protocols and also with ethics. So going into the call itself, there are 4 themes in the call specification. Last time out in 2023, we had 5 themes. So we've consolidated it a little bit this time around, and I'll explain more of that in a while. So the first theme is on climate and environment. The second one is smart, sustainable animal and plant production, animal health and welfare, and farm safety. The third one is bioeconomy, ag tech, digitalization and data. And the last one is around safe, nutritious and sustainable food processing and consumption. So within theme 1, it's broken down into 3 sub-themes: climate, soil, water and air, and agri-biodiversity and agroecology. And there are 3 topics within each of those 3 sub-themes. The second theme has 6 subtopics. So the first one is breeding or production of sustainable agriculture forest material. Then we have identification and mitigation of plant and animal pathogens. Next come animal health and then animal welfare, followed by antimicrobial resistance and farm safety, health and well-being. Most of the topics here are probably in the first 2 sub-themes, but there are, of course, topics across all 6. Theme 3 has 2 sub-themes. The first one is the one relating to the bioeconomy. The second one relates to ag tech, digitalization and data. And there are 3 topics within each of those 2 sub-themes. And then the fourth theme has 4 sub-themes: food, nutrition and health, alternative or blended protein sources, food packaging and food safety. And there are a number of subtopics within each of those. So coming to the funding aspect. So one of the pieces of feedback we received from the survey that we did with you last year was that you would like a clearer indication of what the call budget is. So in addressing that, we've attempted to give you a broad indication of an indicative budget. So you'll probably notice I'm putting a lot of caveats on this because there are a lot of things that can change on our end. And we're also projecting forward into next year. So we will have two tranches of awards, one this year and one next year. We did this in previous thematic calls as well. That's purely a reflection of the way our budgets work. So it doesn't indicate anything other than that. So if you're successful and you're in the second tranche in 2026, it doesn't mean that your project is any different to the ones in 2025. It's really just how we manage our budgets. So what we're saying is that for the awards that will be made in this year's first tranche, we'll have an indicative budget of 15 to 20 million euro. And then in next year, we expect to have about 15 million euro in awards. So altogether, this comes to about 30 to 35 million euro. I do want to emphasize that this really is indicative. It's our best estimate as we currently stand. So I don't expect it to be much lower than what we have indicated here. It could be higher. It just depends on how other calls that we're involved in nationally and internationally proceed. We have no way of knowing in advance the success rate of Irish applicants to European partnership calls, for example, so we have to remain flexible with those. And of course, for next year, we haven't gone through the budgetary process yet. We'll be going through that over the course of the summer. So I can't guarantee anything here, but this is our best estimate, and it's as best as we can do in order to give you an indication of the overall call size. There will be three funding instruments available, a standard project, a large project, and a strategic project. So this is a change from previous calls where there was also what we call a small project. And we have removed that because basically there were very few applications under that category. So to simplify things, we have brought it to three types of projects. And there are specific conditions on each project around the number of RPOs that need to be in, the duration of the projects, and the maximum budget that is allowed under those three project sizes. The funding limits or the budgets for each of those three, this won't come as news to you. That shouldn't be seen as targets because one of the evaluation criteria looks at value for money, so that is important. I'll just check here. I think my camera's gone off, so make sure that's working. There is a requirement for at least 10% of the budget in each RPO, so that's another important factor to keep in mind. There are specific criteria relating to the involvement of Northern Ireland institutions. These are all set out in the call documents. Essentially, what we've done is that the eligible research performing organisations in the North can be partners on projects funded by DAERA, but they're only on those topics that are indicated by a red asterisk in the call specification document. So if there isn't a red asterisk on the topic, then that is not a topic that is eligible for Northern Irish participation. And there is the usual requirement for the INI applicants to put in a pre-approval template to DAERA by the 13th of May 2025. Industry are obviously welcome to be involved on a self-financing basis via cash or in-kind contributions, and the usual rules apply there in terms of respecting the public good nature of the funding and complying with IP protocols. DAFM laboratories or other DAFM divisions can be involved on a self-financing basis in projects. So we don't provide funding for their involvement. Sometimes we get asked by researchers, should they be involved and does it help for them to be involved? No, that doesn't come into consideration really unless there's a clear merit in having them involved. So don't have them involved for the sake of it. They need to be involved as a proper, fully fledged research partner that makes sense for them to be involved on that basis. And all the detail on this is in the call specification document. So where we're at in terms of the call, obviously all the documents are published. The deadlines are published. The assessment of proposals, I'll talk through that in a second. Then after we go through that, we notify the projects that have been selected for funding, and we enter into the usual contract negotiation process. And then awards are made and projects commence. On the assessment of proposals, nothing new here. It's the usual eligibility checks are done in the preliminary assessment by the team here. That's done after the applications are received. Those that are deemed eligible then are put forward to the expert evaluation panels, which consist of overseas academic experts and other national or international experts that we feel should be on those panels. And then the third element of the process is the list of projects that have made it through the expert evaluation phase go to a review and selection panel. So that group has many things to consider, because of course there isn't always funding for all the successful projects that make it through evaluation. So they have up to 8 or 10 different criteria that they have to consider. So this includes things like obviously the evaluation comments of the panel and the scores, the strategic and public good importance of the proposals, their level of innovation, the distribution of funding across the various themes, the overall budget available, the distribution of funding across sectors, other potential sources of funding that might be available nationally or internationally, examining whether there are existing projects where there might be potential for duplication or indeed for synergy, and so on. So they have a wide range of factors that they need to consider, and then the selection of projects that they make goes to the Minister for final approval. In terms of the timeline, so we launched on the 16th of April, and we're allowing 8 weeks for applications. There are some deadlines there for technical queries to ourselves on the 4th of June, the DAERA deadline of the 13th of May and 20th of May, the submission deadline of the 10th of June, 12 midday on the 10th of June, and then we hope to contact the successful projects in Q3 in order to commence contract negotiations. And once that process is finished, we would be hoping to announce the tranche 1 successful projects in Q4. In terms of some key information for the application itself, so I think most of you will probably know that we have recently moved over to the Smart Simple grant management application. So that's where your applications will be submitted. The usual sign-offs are required here by the coordinator, the Vice President for Research and your TTO, and finance offices are also encouraged to join as collaborators. You are encouraged to save your application regularly so that no material gets lost. We can only accept applications from approved RPOs, and they have to be approved before we published the call. And all of those eligibility criteria are set out in the call spec document and the guidelines for applicants document. So just to run through some of the main changes maybe before I conclude on this piece, and these are changes we've made in response to feedback we've received from you in the surveys we did last year. So as I said earlier, the first thing we're doing here is that's new is that we're stating upfront what the indicative budget for the call is. It's even though there's caveats on our best estimation of what the call budget is, I think it's fair to say that it will be smaller than call 23, where we awarded just over 46 million in research funding. So we won't be getting to that point in call 2025, and that is in turn reflected then in the call spec. So in surveys we've done with you, some of you say that our calls are too wide, and some of you say they're too specific. And some of you also say that the call spec and the number of topics in it aren't reflective of the budget available. So with all of that in mind, we have tried to make sure that we have a call spec that is reflective of the budget available, and there are 39% fewer topics in this call than in call 2023. We have also streamlined the topics themselves. So we have removed what you would have seen in previous calls of Part A's and Part B's. We generally had relatively few applications to what were Part B's. Those were the topics that were written in very specific terms. And I think it was causing confusion for people in any event. So we have streamlined things, and the topics are just the topics. There is no such thing as Part A's or Part B's. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 project sizes rather than 4. We've moved from FlexiGrant to Smart Simple, and hopefully you'll notice as well some simplifications and streamlining we've done to the application form. One of the pieces of feedback we got from you was that the application form that we had in previous calls was quite long, and some parts of it were duplicative. So we've really tried to remove the duplication in the application form as best we can. Probably always room for improvement there, but hopefully you'll notice it being a little bit easier than the previous application. So some resources are listed here. We'll make the slides available afterwards. We'll also make the recording available, and we will also make an FAQ document available. So after call 23, the webinar we had for that, we circulated quite an extensive FAQ document, and we have an updated version of that now, but we haven't issued it yet because we'll add to it based on some common questions that come up today. So we'll refine that document and we'll aim to issue it in the coming days, and it will be added to the open call page on our website. So where the other documents are for call 2025, that's where you'll find the link to the recording of the webinar and the FAQ document. Okay, so we're going to move now to questions and answers. So we have about a half an hour for this. So if you bear with me, I'm going to open my question pane here, and we'll start working through these, and I'll put them to the team as best I can. So the first question is how to endorse the application on Smart Simple by the Research Office, the Finance Office and the TTO. Fionnuala, that's probably one for you.
Sure, thank you. So the coordinator will invite the Finance Office, the TTO and the VP at the time they are opening their application. The one thing I should say to you on this is that the coordinator should open the application and then save a draft. If he does not save a draft, the invitations going to the TTO Finance Office and VP and other PIs will not include a reference number for the project. It'll just say 2025 or underscore. So if you save a draft, it will associate the next available number to that application. Also, it's a change for this year. We are looking for declarations from the lead PIs from all the other collaborating RPOs. So at the same stage when the coordinator is inviting the TTO, VP and Finance Office, they'll also invite the PIs from those organisations. And just to note that those PIs must go in and accept the invitation before their RPO details will populate on the application. So an email will then issue to the invitees, and they will log on to their portal. And when you log on to the homepage, you will see for the finance officer will say the very bottom of the page, it will say pending finance office approval, and it will list all the projects there that require approval. So when you go on, choose that application, go on to the declarations page, and there is a part there that the VP and TTO and Finance Office will have to complete, and the Finance Office will then also do the budgets on the application. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay, and there are probably a few more here on Smart Simple, Fionnuala, so we might keep going with some of these. So will there be a webinar focused on the use of the new Smart Simple system?
We're hoping to maybe do a video just to show completion of the application, so and have it talked through. So hopefully we'll have that shortly.
Okay. One institution here is having an issue overriding the VP of Research to the applicant portal on the Smart Simple platform. So I think things like that are probably best raised directly.
Yeah, we did actually receive an email on that, and we will get back today. I think it's an issue in relation to the property or the role that was given to this person. They have a dual role, so we just need to look at that, and we will revert to the organisation today.
Okay, and to just the issue about the Finance Office being a collaborator, it's not mandatory that they be added as collaborators on applications.
No, it's not mandatory. Although I know that all the finance offices in most of the RPOs would say that they would like to be involved in the project from the early stages, and it is procedure within most of them that they do have to be involved in the projects from the get-go.
Okay. There is a question asking whether the call is open to researchers from outside of Ireland, and no, it isn't. It is only open to the eligible RPOs in Ireland. Can a private company be classified as an RPO? No, and the guidelines and information on becoming an eligible RPO are on the website. They are under review currently, and we will be publishing new guidelines very shortly. In previous calls, there was an Excel budget template. Is there one for this call, and where can we find it? Fionnuala or Ross, maybe you could take that one.
Yeah. When the coordinator logs on to start an application, they'll see the button to the left of apply is instructions. So all the instructions, the call guidelines, the call spec, the budget sheets, and a Word version of the application are all there.
Okay. Can a private company headquartered in Northern Ireland lead an application? No. There are only, I think, 3 eligible RPOs in Northern Ireland. Private companies can be involved in projects, but that would be at the discretion of the scientific coordinator of the project, and it would be on an in-kind or cash basis. So more specific enough questions to do with Smart Simple around changing affiliation on Smart Simple. How is this done?
You can log on to your own profile and update it, but if you have any difficulties, just email us at research@agriculture.gov.ie and we'll make the amendments.
Okay. Ross, this one might be for you in relation to equipment. Is there an upper limit in terms of costs allowed for durable equipment? What is considered a major item of equipment not funded under the call?
Okay. Right. Is there an upper limit? Theoretically, not. No. Like I suppose that's the point. Any article of equipment that's kind of needed, specific to the call, just essentially it has to be outlined what's needed and a robust justification for it. Outside of that, then it'll be evaluated. In terms of, I'm sorry, what were the other aspects to upper limit in terms of, is there considered
I think
I suppose it's like, so minor equipment would be, laptops, anything I suppose below, let's say 3,000 or so would be considered relatively minor piece of equipment. Above that, it would be considered like a more major thing. I suppose you have to also take into account that if you're buying buying a piece of equipment where the lifespan would far exceed the timeline of the project it's being used on, that will affect then your depreciation eligibility amount. But I suppose, like for specifics on this, if there's particular items that you're interested in getting, or you need to get a particular steer on, I'd always just first port of call is just touch base with us at research@agriculture.gov.ie, and we'll look at the specifics with you and just see, how can it be, how best, I suppose, to achieve your aims with it.
Okay, thanks, Ross. Is there a limit on the number of applications you can lead or be involved in? Now, the team can correct me here, but I'm not aware that there is. I don't think we have a limit. No, so there isn't a limit. Is a project application with industry partners viewed more favorably by reviewers than one without? So what I would say to that is, if we ended up in a scenario where there were, several applications in one topic area, and all other things being equal, so all evaluation scores come out the same, etc. If one had industry partners and they were there for a meaningful reason, it could give that project an edge. But to be honest, reviewers and the review and selection panel can see through quite quickly applications which have industry partners, that are there to tick a box. They really need to be there in a meaningful way. Otherwise, their usefulness isn't as apparent. So it can help, but there's no guarantee. So is it only the coordinator who can commence an application? Nuala?
Yes, it is.
Can you register a PhD student with an expert outside of Ireland? No, I think is the answer to that. That might be one we'll come back to in the FAQ document for the question, or we might just check one or two things on that, but I suspect it's a no. There are some questions relating to the topics in the call, and some people are basically pointing out that some topics are extremely specific and other ones are too broad. I think if you have specific questions on the spec itself, you're probably better to send them to us by email, so that we can deal with them directly rather than on the webinar today. Can a PI from an eligible RPO collaborate with any early stage startup to accelerate the development process and plan the commercialization of the product in parallel? If it is possible, what is the process? Okay, I mean, some of these we probably need to take a little bit of time to reflect on the appropriate answer. So again, it'll come out in the FAQ document. The only thing I'll say is that our research calls tend to be focused on research that is low to mid TRL level. We don't tend to fund stuff at the very high TRL levels. So commercialization, that commercialization piece should be borne in mind in that context. Is it possible to have elements of more than one theme in the same project? Yes, it is, and that is specified in the call spec. The existing research facilities form doesn't download from Smart Simple.
Okay, I'll have a look at that straight away. You should be able to enter all the data in the tables, though, for any existing facilities that you're using. But I certainly will have a look at it, and if there's a comment needed, we can include it in the FAQs.
Do the lead RPOs complete sections of the form on their own Smart Simple login, or how should they access the application form?
No, it's the responsibility of the coordinator and the lead finance office to complete the application. So the only people that have access to it are those people. The PIs in the other RPOs will only have view access of the application, and the edit access they will have will be in relation to their declaration. That is the only data that they need to complete.
Okay. Are TTO and VP approvals provided before submission of the application by the coordinator, or is there a workflow approach where approvals are provided after submission by the coordinator?
No, as I said, the TTO, VP, and finance office need to be invited at the start of the process, and you can't submit an application until such time as all of those have signed their declarations, and then the submit button will be available to the coordinator.
Yeah. Would a collaboration between 3 RPOs be considered better than 2? Well, it kind of goes back to the answer I gave on the industry collaboration. It needs to be meaningful. If it makes sense for 3 to be involved, then 3 should be involved, but don't try to put a third in just for the sake of it. I mean, obviously, it always looks better if there are more institutions involved, but again, reviewers will see through that very quickly. If the third partner is just in a very minor way and it's not apparent or clear why they're there, that will be picked up in the evaluation quite quickly. How many pages are allowed for the scientific description of the project? Additionally, should 10% of the funding be obtained from our home institute? I'm not sure I understand the second part of this question. In terms of the first part, how many pages are allowed for the scientific description of the project? Fionnuala, is there any restriction on that?
As far as I'm aware, there is a word count. I'm not sure what it is now, but it may be 500 words, up to 500. But it should mention a word count underneath the text box.
Yeah. Okay. Can a private company with a presence in Ireland but headquartered outside of Ireland be part of an application led by an Irish university? I don't think there's a problem with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody on the call, but I don't see an issue with that. Can salary costs be used to pay an external consultant to help with commercialization and knowledge transfer? No, I don't think so. Ross, that would is there
No,
any?
so if they wanted to bring in an external consultant to assist with anything, then realistically what you're looking at there is subcontracting.
Subcontracting, yeah.
So now, as well, ideally, like at application stage, when you have to understand, I suppose, that an RPO, like when they're subcontracting out particular things, like they'll have to go out to tender on these things. So it's certainly they shouldn't be able to supply specific details for anything, and DAFM wouldn't have an expectation that they would be supplying specific details for people who would be providing the service, because we'd assume you wouldn't have that information yet.
Just while we have you, then, Ross, in terms of salary costs, I think this is an important question. Can we include expected increases out to June 2026 and a standard increase thereafter to cover potential pay increases?
Yeah, so we always have it that we would instruct you to, for known increases, absolutely 100% you have to put in for those, because I know there's a wage agreement that will be ending in 2026. In terms of then where to go to after that, I think your best guidance will be from your own HR departments, where they will sort of outline their expectations, because I suppose there's to a certain degree it's unknown. DAFM are quite flexible in terms of what is submitted, unless it's some astronomical figure that wouldn't stand up to any type of scrutiny or stuff. But no, like DAFM will be very accommodating in terms of, because there will be a certain unknown there after 2026, please do provide some expectation that you'll have after discussing with your own HR.
Yeah. Thanks, Ross. What could be the latest starting date? Anyone take that? What starting date should be put in?
We've included an indicative date of the 1st of December, but it may not be as early as that, depending on contract negotiations. And
yeah, I think for the moment that's what people should work off. It says in the guidelines that lead RPOs can complete sections of the form. I'm not sure how this is possible.
lead RPOs would be the coordinator and the lead finance office.
So that's what's meant by that in the guidelines document. Yeah. Okay.
If there's any query, that person can come back to us on research@agriculture.gov.ie.
Yeah. There's a few questions around a PowerPoint section in the application. People are looking for more guidance and detail about this PowerPoint section in the application. I presume that's an optional thing, Fionnuala, is it?
Yes, it is optional, yeah.
Okay. Can project managers be employed as funded staff on the project? I think that is allowed, Ross, isn't it? But yeah, is it just for the large one? The strategic project?
Well, I suppose there's more of an expectation of a need with some of the larger projects, but I would say, as with anything, if any particular role is expected to be needed, it's just, you fill in your relevant costs and you supply your justification, and then that'll be assessed.
So it will obviously push up the cost of the project, and costs have to.
So yeah, there is
as one of the marking criteria.
And there are certain ceilings towards things, so it's keeping in mind, if you're taking on particular people doing particular roles, will that suddenly push you into, are you going beyond the realms of what you'd initially set out to do?
I mean, we typically see it on the strategic projects because of their scale. Okay, I think we're coming to the end of this. I'm just scanning the questions that came in to check that I haven't missed any. There are one or two very specific questions that we will answer in the FAQ document. So we get a transcript of all these questions. So we will endeavour to answer them in that document. But I think if any of the team now have spotted something I've missed, please intervene here.
Just I see one of the questions at the end, is buyout of time available in this call? No, that's not something that DAFM facilitates.
Okay. Do partner RPOs have to be non-academic, or can all RPOs be academic? Well, the eligible RPOs are those that we've published in the call spec. So those are the ones that are eligible to be included in your application and are eligible for funding. All right, I think that's as much as we will go through for the moment. We're just coming up on the hour. So as I said earlier, we will bring all the questions into an FAQ document. If you have specific questions, you can always send them to us at research@agriculture.gov.ie, and we'll do our best to answer them. We are going through a challenging period at the moment in terms of the move from FlexiGrant to Smart Simple. So I do want to acknowledge all of your forbearance with us on that. These transitions are never easy from one grant management software to another. So thank you for your patience with that. You probably have issues with that as well, and they can be flagged on the system. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Thanks to my own team here for taking the time to be here. They put a lot of work into getting the call ready and out there, and the work continues over the course of the year as we answer your questions now and we go through the evaluation. So I wish you all the best of luck in your applications. We look forward to seeing lots of good applications, and hopefully be bringing you some good news towards the end of the year. So thank you all for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day.